It's like, there's one, oh, look, across here.
Oh,
I'd sit there and not always reaches.
I-
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you don't have to undignify yourself later. Yeah.
Go ahead. It's okay, don't worry, I'll just like Anthony, go down there again. Okay. 5:30. Hold the meeting to order and one to pledge allegiance and then we'll do.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
I didn't realize this was on the screen.
Yeah,
I see him. Yeah, Richard Weiss is
Remote today. Yes,
remote
remote. Yes.
from Perry.
All right, for roll call, Chair Stern,
Yes.
Vice Chair Fertig. Harrison Grant Williams. Here. Richard Weiss
Here.
and Jacqueline Scott.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, next on the agenda is the appointment of chair and vice chair. Yes, Jackie.
I would like to nominate Harrison to be the new chair of the committee.
Any other nominations? Chris,
I nominate you to continue for sake of. This is, yeah, this is.
any other,
There was nothing with.
Can
With
I
Harris.
make a comment on this?
excuse me, Richard, do you have any? comments?
Yeah, I honestly, I think that Judy and Chris as vice chair, I think we sort of established a nice flow of this, and I'm happy to keep working on the agenda. So I really don't see any reason to
Yes,
Can I
Jackie.
make a comment? The reason I'm interested in changing the chair is because this committee, there's been a lot of negative comments about this committee throughout the city as to personal agendas, sarcastic innuendos and those things that take place. And I think it's important as a committee that we have credibility and we focus on the issue of what we're supposed to do, not constantly give our public opinions, criticize the commission, and it's just a bad optic. And that is the reason I want to change the chair, along with the fact it's an election year. Our chair is a lobbyist. Our chair is a campaign manager. And I think that's another bad optic.
Thank you very much. You're also obvious and
For the record, I've never lobbied in my life. This is the kind of crap that we have to put up
Okay.
with. This is the kind
so
of
let's
behavior.
decide.
So unprofessional.
That's right, and talking about unprofessional, we will talk later on that decorum of behavior of individuals.
I
But
hope
call
we
the
do.
question.
To close nominations. Second. And the nominations are you made the motion?
Right.
For,
To close nominations, there was only one that was nominated and seconded.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
So that's the chair and vice chair are staying as is. Okay,
Yes.
that was your, I just wanted to make sure that's what your motion was. Okay.
Madam Chair, can I just make a comment?
Sure.
And I have all the respect in the world for people who feel that this committee is sown division. But I don't think the people who are making those comments at the city, that Jackie has mentioned, has attended these meetings or has viewed these meetings. Because I've always felt that this meeting, this board has always been very collegial. That I don't think there's any personal criticisms that have ever been made to any individual. And when we're talking about the city, we're talking about things that we as a board perceive that the city could do better. Not that we're criticizing the board, but we are here as a city, but we're here to try to change the charter to avoid these disputes in the future. And so, Jackie, I appreciate your comments. I know that you haven't been here through the past year that we've been doing these things, but you may be hearing people at the city talking about it. But, well, first of all, I haven't heard it, And no one has come to the committee beforehand to actually express those concerns. But if you have those concerns, let's talk them out. But,
I appreciate what you're saying, Chris, but I have had to sit through meetings where I have to listen to the chair talk about how bad the commission is, how wrong the city is, how the county is perfect. It gets really old. And I'm not the only person that has heard that. There's a lot of people that listen to the video. So if we could get everyone to focus on our job and not give the personal jabs to people and the criticisms, I think we would have a lot more credibility when all this information gets as far as the city commission.
okay, well, again, maybe I'm not as tuned in as you are to the jabs, but I have not heard a lot of those jabs. Occasionally, yes, people do make a
And it's
comment, but,
pointless.
but
I think it's time to move on.
Yes.
Because there's been a lot of acorn issues going on at the Council of Civic Association, at commission meetings, et cetera. And I think it's time to move on, Jackie. You've only been to 2 meetings here.
Don't point this
So,
out at me, Judy.
Well, you're the one that stated. So saying that, let's just move on. And do you want to have clarity of it, that the motion and the second?
Yeah, the way I understood the motion, or the way I heard the motion was, it was to close the nominations, and only after the clerk asked, I think it was after the vote, whether that included reinstalling the chair and the vice chair, did Mr. Granville say yes? So can you clarify with a motion?
Yeah, I did clarify it after the vote, so let's just go ahead and just have a clean, Harrison, if you want to make the same motion as you intended, a motion to
Votes
reappoint.
and nominations.
Well, my motion was just to close the nominations. I only heard one nomination and second. I didn't second myself.
I believe,
I thought there were 2 nominations. One was of you.
I didn't hear anyone second. Did you second me?
no, unfortunately,
I don't think you need a second for a nomination.
Oh,
That's not a motion.
rules are different where I come from.
We don't have rules. Sorry.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Fair enough. Then my motion was to keep the chair and vice chair the same.
I thought Chris made that motion.
So I made the motion for the chair, not for myself.
Oh, okay.
Richard made the motion for
Oh,
chair
yeah,
and
yeah,
vice
yeah.
chair.
In which case I seconded Richard's motion.
okay. So, Richard, your motion was for the chair and vice chair to stay as is, seconded by Harrison, so all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I oppose.
Thank you.
I oppose.
So now, moving on to the approval of the meeting minutes from January 4th.
I did have one correction. I don't think I was absent since January. Was one attendance when absence. Matt doesn't quite work on that.
I just remember the one meeting where you were tied up with the budget and that was it.
That was
Oh, yeah.
last year.
But this is January to
Right.
December 24.
Right. So,
So
Okay, I move to correct the attendance record for Harrison to show that he has been in attendance, one attendance and no absences.
I see.
I appreciate that.
Perfect attendance.
For one meeting two.
Okay, so you made the motion to
Any second?
approve the minutes as amended, seconded by Chair Stern. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes.
and Paul wanted to bring to our attention a corrections in the minutes on page 2. Paul,
The 3rd paragraph. And the last sentence is not a sentence. I don't know what's meant there. The board, something.
Attorney Bengal reviewed the proposed changes to 3.15 from the previous meeting, and that says the board.
The board was grateful.
Thank you.
So.
Right
I don't
here,
know what you want to do about that. And then there's one place.
where it says the
Oh, page
board. Yeah, page
Couple
two.
of paragraphs down, my name is spelled incorrectly. Yeah. I've seen worse, but that's.
Where was that,
But
Paul?
yeah, the third paragraph down, the board.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So I'm not sure whether whether something needs to be added or that needs to be deleted. I don't know. I guess I'll leave that up to you. At your discretion. And my name.
I think at this point, we should just delete it.
Yeah, delete the two words.
Okay.
I'd
And
also
correct.
move at the same time to correct Paul's last night.
That's it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
That's for the motion to amend, and now the motion to.
Doing that,
adopt the
yeah,
amendment.
double of it.
Okay, under old business,
Ready?
absolutely.
So I'll start with, again, like last time I went in the order that you discussed them. So let's start with B2. You'll see that I added that the election on a proposed, and it's on page 3, by the way,
B what? 3.15,
so 3.15
page
G,
3.
G Romanet 2. G little.
Okay, good.
Okay, it's on page 3 of the materials.
So page 5 of
Page
5 of the circular.
Oh, G. I'm on
Yeah, I'm looking on page.
I'm on the wrong page.
Page 5.
5, sorry. Thank you. I'm on the wrong page. Okay, so I added that the election on the proposed or referred ordinance could be in conjunction with an earlier available Broward County election as approved by the supervisor of elections. So previously, we had at the city's next regular municipal election, but that could be almost 4 years later. Could be up to 4 years later. Or in conjunction with an earlier available Broward County election as approved by the supervisor. So I added that at your request, but the one thing that I'd like to ask you is, so for the mail ballot election, it's up to the committee to prepay it, but what about what I've added, the earlier available Broward County election as opposed to the city's regular? Should there be any indication of whether who should be paying for that? Should it be the committee or does it need to, should it stay silent?
I thought we discussed that last time, and,
I don't think,
Richard, can you help us out?
did we
Richard, I think
discuss
we
if it
talked
was,
about-
if it would be an intervening election?
Who should pay? Is that the question?
Yes. For mail ballot, if the committee wants it earlier, if the,
Okay, are we still on Romanet number?
The city
Oh,
commission
you-
committee's request to do an earlier mail ballot election and the committee would pay. But since I've added an earlier regular county election, not necessarily the cities, do we need to indicate who would pay there?
Let me just read it.
David, the contract we have with the SOE.
Mhm.
And how would that impact you financially at the city?
I'm sorry, I was still writing the minutes, so I missed the beginning of the conversation if you.
The question was about if you chose to do it at a regular Broward election cycle versus a city election cycle. What would be the expense to the city for a mail ballot petition effort if it was a non-municipal election?
I would have to get a cost estimate from them, but I think it's gonna be pretty expensive.
Yeah, I think one time we looked and it was around 300,000, but I think that was more than a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they
Probably not.
I know the Broward SOE has changed a little bit of their fee structures for March versus November. However, if it's something separate, I would have to get a cost estimate from them.
David, could you also get, if it's not a mail, but a regular election? like at the polls as well.
So, yeah, that one will be significant, and on top of that, it's very difficult, especially that some of our polling locations are schools close for the November election, so some of the polling places that we would normally use if we had a special election off cycle, the city has to find all the polling locations. And on top of it, some of the bigger ones that, like schools that we use, they're not gonna open the doors for that. But I can certainly ask. I do have an estimate from a couple years ago about having a special election off cycle, but I can ask for a cost estimate regarding a mail only.
Roger, the mail, the way we have it though, is the mail ballot election, it has the committee paying for it.
Right.
So I don't know if that's really the question. The question is if it's held during a non-Fort Lauderdale, Broward County election, an intervening election. That's the question, I think.
So,
Which is what I said, yeah.
so just to kind of like throw in a, for instance, if we're adding a question to an August ballot, that is still going to all registered voters in Fort Lauderdale, even
Right.
though it is not a Fort Lauderdale regular election. That seems to meet the requirements here, and I don't know what surcharge there may exist for adding a special question, but honestly, that might be de minimis.
Yeah, it goes by page, so it would probably be the same price as what it would be in November, because we'd
Oh, in
only,
November.
yeah, it wouldn't affect it. So as long as all the polling places and everything up, they're not doing anything special if, like for presidential preference, if we were to have added questions to that, I don't think it would be very much more expensive than having them in November. But again, I'd have to ask them for an estimate for something like that. Because it changes year to year, the pricing and everything, or it can. So I could certainly ask the question.
But could you ask then, if we're piggybacking on some other issue that's being raised by the city of Fort Lauderdale, if there's any marginal cost to that?
Also,
I'd just like to go through this language again, if you don't mind. Or it says, or in conjunction with an earlier available Broward County election as approved by the supervisor of elections. If it's held in conjunction, why do we need their approval? The supervisor's approval. Why can't it just be that way?
so it's, you wanna?
Yeah, just because I thought that Mary Hall and they were pretty emphatic on this. The supervisor is not willing to take non-scheduled election days to do special elections anymore. So honestly, I actually think that language is reflective of what we were told at the last meeting.
My notes from the last meeting, what you said was if such an election is available, if the SOE will allow it. So rather than use those exact words, I put approved, and I could change it.
So the example for us was the special elections in 2022. Even though he was going on in November, we did have to request to be on it, which he gave approval for it. And then after that, then we obviously had to do the agreement and get the formal cost estimate.
Okay, and then let's just go on in the sentence. It says, unless the city commission at the committee's request elects an earlier vote of the electorate, provided that in such event, the election shall be by mail ballot and the committee shall prepay the cost of the mail ballot election. So let's think about let's think if the city commission really feels like this needs to be put on the ballot, why are we mandating that be by mail ballot as opposed to giving the city commission the option of either a mail ballot or they might think it's so important that the city would pay for it, or it should be a regular, election. Why are we mandating it in that case that it be a mail ballot?
Chris?
I thought, Richard, when we discussed this, we thought it would be the option of the committee if the committee does not want to wait until the next election cycle, then the committee had the option of paying for the mail-in ballot.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I mean, theoretically, and there is a huge cost to it. The committee might say, we have tons of money. We want, and we don't want a mail ballot election. We want an election. And we want to, and we're happy to pay for it. We want a actual, where people go to the polls type election.
Roger?
Yes.
All I can say is at a previous meeting, that was the direction.
No, I'm just trying, I'm trying to, for us to think through this at each spot, just to think through and make sure that we're doing what we think we were doing. Would there be a circumstance where the committee says to the commission, we want an earlier vote, but we don't want a mail ballot, we want an on-site election and we'll pay for it?
When the city did the bond issue in 2019, that was a non-election year. And that was a special election, but it was the city putting forward the bond. The issue that was always an issue of concern was, and that was a full-fledged, I don't think that was mail. Wasn't it a full-fledged election day election, David, in 2019? It was March 2019, we did the Parks bond and the police headquarters bond.
We did that. That was standalone.
Standalone, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that was standalone.
So that's my question, whether if the committee has the money to pay for a standalone election and the supervisor of elections is able to do it, shouldn't we be providing that option? As opposed to mandating that an earlier election be held by mail ballot.
Chris,
Well, once again, I think, wouldn't that be not up to the city, but it'd be up to the committee? If the committee doesn't want to wait, then they have the option of either a mail or a standalone.
Right, but this doesn't
And they
say,
have to pay
but
for the
this-
price.
but this doesn't say that, Chris. It says
No, I
that
understand
unless
that.
it's,
I'm-
right,
We're talking about what we want to put into it.
yeah, I think that the committee, if the committee should have the option of requesting that the city commission, unless the city commission at the city's request elects an earlier vote of the electorate. So we're leaving it up to the city commission to expedite a vote overturning something that they've approved
we still never-
or something that they didn't want, something that they didn't want to approve.
Richard,
Doesn't sound-
I think what they're saying is we want to take out the city commission having a decision-making process in this. If a citizen's initiative doesn't. You agree?
I totally agree, and I don't think this sentence says that. I think it puts the city commission right back in it.
Right, we want
The
to
second
do
part of the sentence.
I'd like to make an amendment then, because I think we can clean this up somewhat easily. If in paren G, Romanet 2, after the underlined portion, it says unless strike the city commission at the, so unless, so what it would read, unless the committee, and just change the tense here, committee requests an earlier vote of the electorate, provided that in such event, the election shall be done by mail ballot election and the committee shall prepay the cost of the mail ballot election. So all we'd really be striking is the city commission.
So how would it read, Harrison?
So rather than doing the strike through, I'll just give you what it should say. So from the underlined portion, or in conjunction with an earlier available Broward County election as approved by the supervisor of elections, unless the committee elects an earlier vote of the electorate, provided that in such event, the election shall be by mail ballot election and the committee shall prepay the cost of the mail ballot election.
Okay, so what, there's one more piece, which is that the committee could elect not a mail ballot election, but they might elect an on-site election and pay for
So what we were told from the supervisor of elections office at the last meeting was and again, this is a policy of this supervisor. They are no longer willing to do a special election off date as anything other than a mail ballot election.
it. Right, so we'll just say if available then, but I do think that because this is a charter, not for this supervisor, it's forever, for a while until it's amended, that it should say that it's either at the committee's election, either an on-site election, if available, or a mail ballot.
That's fair. I would agree with that.
Second,
So you made the motion and he just clarified, just make sure.
Yes.
Okay, second.
he agreed to the front page.
Friendly amendment, yes. All in favor? All opposed?
Okay, Paul, you have it?
I think so.
Okay, so, I mean, Paul's the only one that matters here. So Paul, take a second and make sure you have it.
All right, I mean, I'll fix the language, but it's unless the committee elects an earlier vote of the electorate, and it's either on-site as available or a mail ballot election.
Right, takes the city commission, right, takes the city commission out of
Right,
this.
take the city commission out, but are they both at the committee's expense?
Yes,
Yes.
The next one? Yes, D, 315D. Is a little out of order. I think D.
Page 4.
Yeah. So you wanted it to be clear that the city would develop and provide a template for the petition. So the way I handled it was I deleted the petition development language from D.
Mhm.
So it was crossed out. And I added to C.
okay, let me just look,
Submitted
yeah, that's, which one should we start with, Paul, D or C?
D.
D like dog?
Start with D, you'll see that I crossed out, the city will develop the petition form to be used.
Mhm.
And you'll see where I put it. Okay, and then go back to D to C, and you'll see that I suggested on the second line together with a proposed petition on a form provided by the city. And that's the petition.
Okay, let me just read it with the change. Okay, I think you have it right.
Okay with that?
I think you have it right. What does everybody else
Agreed.
Agreed.
think? Okay,
This was 315E1. Well, this is an easy one. I left the percentage at 1% at your direction. E3. I changed the title of the 180-day deadline to a qualifying deadline and made it from the city attorney's finding that the proposed ordinance and petition are legally sufficient rather than from the filing of the affidavit.
I think that's right.
Yeah, that's what we discussed.
Yep.
Okay, everyone okay?
Yep.
F1. I shortened Broward County Supervisor elections to supervisor elections after spelling it out the first time. Excuse.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I did that in succeeding paragraphs too.
Thank you, Paul. That's good.
315, and I'm sorry to go back, but let's go back to A1.
Okay.
I deleted the exception of business decisions, as you'll recall we discussed, that had been added based on the mayor's suggestion that the process shouldn't be used to get the city out of its contractual obligations. I also, I want to point out, this was also had also been at the mayor's request to put in recall of elected officials. It's probably superfluous because state law controls.
Right, which is what we actually said on the record the last time.
So do we take it out? Or
Yeah, I mean, we were not addressing recall of elected officials.
Right. And Paul, I may be wrong, but weren't you going to do a little research to make sure that, to explain to us what happens if, whether there can be an impairment of contract, whether the city commission can enter into something, and what could you talk to us about that a little bit?
I didn't find a specific, any specific case law dealing with an ordinance. I did find one where a city tried to change a contract by resolution. And the court said that a municipality is bound to recognize its contract the same as an individual. So it's the same as having a contract with a company, with an individual, and just because it's a city, it can't use its powers to get out of it. And the court further said that, and one party to a contract, wait a second, hold on one second. And a party to a contract with a municipality is entitled to the constitutional protection against impairment of it if the municipality attempts to unilaterally change its obligations under a valid agreement. As I said, this one was this attempt was by resolution. I don't think it would be any different by ordinance. So the city is like anyone else entering into a contract. So yeah, I mean, it's possible to terminate. It would be a breach. There might be damages, but the city would be held to a standard as an individual.
And when it's the city entering into a contract, does any one individual get to cancel the contract, or does it have to go back before the city for an actual vote?
It may depend on what's in the contract, what the contract says.
That's exactly right. And Judy, under certain circumstances, a contract, the resolution approving the contract could delegate to the manager, to the administrator, the ability to, to exercise a cancellation or other things on behalf of the city, or it may not. So it really depends upon, wouldn't you say, Paul? Wouldn't you say it has to do more with the resolution approving the contract?
Well,
as opposed to-
contracts, not all contracts are by resolution. The contract itself the motion may say, the
Yeah.
recommendation in the commission agenda memo may provide some authorization. But let me add this though, because the city has threshold authority. So the city manager is authorized to enter into contracts in amounts less than $100,000. So putting bidding and competition aside, just talking about authority to enter into contracts, city manager has that authority. I would suggest that to terminate a contract, presumably by its terms, in that case would also be by the city manager, because he has the authority to enter into it. He would have the same authority to get out of it. Those that are over $100,000, and of course we're talking about purchases. Those over $100,000 require city commission approval, unless there's some other exception. And then if the city commission approved entering into the contract, then it would be the city commission that could authorize getting out of it or terminating it, unless there's some other authority delegated to someone else.
If the, just raised an interesting question. You were just talking about the city manager having the power to enter into a contract up to, or just under 100,000. If he knows the entire cost of a contract, say is 400,000, can he do a carve out for it to be just under 100,000 so he can get the contractor in the door and then say, we need more work and do an, how does that work?
So I mean, I can pull up the ordinance to be clearer, but as I recall, because I may have drafted some of this. And I believe I added this part of it, it's 100,000 for a term contract. So if it's a term of years, if let's say it's a 1-year term with renewals.
Right.
It's, I believe that the mandatory city commission approval amount, $100,000 is per term. So if that answers your question.
So you can't do a carve out knowing that the full term is beyond the 100,000. Without commission
I would
approval
say-
getting.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think what she's saying is you can have a 5-year, $500,000 contract. But they look at it at the term, if it's 1-year term with 4 renewals, it's still within the city manager's authority.
Right.
I'm saying if it's one contract for, say, $400,000.
A one-time purchase or
Yeah, it's
example, or is
one
it a term?
contract of work,
lump sum?
lump sum, or anticipated 400,000 to do the lump sum work. Can he do a carve out just to engage the company for under 100,000 so that then the city,
No,
It's
I'm
already
sure
on
the
the
auditor has something to
No.
say about that.
No, you can do that. He's got like 100,000 limit. But I think what you're saying, if it's 100,000 limit, it could be for 2 years, but it's only 100,000. If you wanted something like for 400,000, you'd have to bring it as an agenda item. You know, he has other, you know, there's a lot of things like the city manager, once the contract is in place, he has authority to increase the capacity of the contract by 10%. For the ordinance to do that. But just like if he wanted to, you know, get somebody that's up to 100,000 that he doesn't have to go to the commission for it. You can do that.
And check.
I also-
There are
I also-
For example, purchases from national or regional co-op agreements. He has that authority with an unlimited amount. There are some contracts that he can enter into without any limit.
Well,
Just
I-
Emergency items too.
Emergency,
emergency items.
and co-op contracts is one of them. There's a laundry list of exceptions.
I think to sort of stay on point here. That would come under the duties of if there's some
City manager.
issue we want to discuss here. Yeah, we would want to discuss it under the city manager, but I think for the purposes of this section 315A1, we've answered the concern, I think, that was raised as to whether, anybody would want to contract with the city, that I think was raised at the last meeting. And Paul has sort of given us the case law, which is that the city can't enter into contracts and then have them canceled by some ordinance or resolution. So I think we've answered that question. I think we're right. Then to
And as I
eliminate
said,
the.
I didn't find anything specific on ordinances, but I think this case is close enough to show that a municipality is treated just the same as an individual.
Right. And so therefore, the concern that was raised at the last meeting about that nobody would want to do business with the city, which I think is a valid concern, really sort of the case law answers it, which says that the contracting party is protected.
All right, and I'll delete recall also. Ready for the next one?
Yes.
Mhm.
Let's turn to 3.03. Anything else on initiative and referendums?
Where are we going? 3.03 we're going to?
Page 7.
Page 7.
Yeah, no, I have it. So I think what we should do is there should be a motion to approve I lost a second, 3.15. As we've discussed and amended today, but Paul, I think we should come back. I hate to do this to you one more time with a completely redone section showing all the changes we've made.
Oh, I agree, but, and I would also suggest that rather than vote on it today, let's do it at the next meeting when you see the final.
Right, and I think that all of this, we said, I think in the beginning, that all of this is subject to us voting on it all at the end. So we get one more look at it at the end of the process, right?
But you agree, we'll vote on it next time? Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, perfect. So
All right.
now we're going to 3.03.
3.03 was an easy one. I changed reapportionment to reestablishment of city commission districts. Because that's how it's referred to elsewhere in the charter. And then let's move on to the next page, 3.13. I deleted the.
Hold on 1 second. I think we need to give ourselves a little bit of pat on our back here. This was a long discussion. I think we really came up with a very practical, solution to all of this that dealt with all of the issues. So I think we did a really good job on this.
Ready?
Yeah, I can't hear anything, but
I deleted at your request the 5th Tuesday optional meeting. Also, in connection with 3.13 regarding meetings, I provided a sampling of other municipalities with regard to their meetings. And I also provided a sampling of other municipalities with regard to their agenda preparation. So that all starts on the next page. And I don't know if you had a chance to review any of these, but if there's anything that you want to adopt from them or you like, or feel free to let me know.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Well, I provided the samples that you requested, the way other municipalities handle their meeting schedules and
Yes.
their agenda preparation. And I don't know if you want to discuss it further or provide any direction, if you want to adopt anything different, or if you like any of these provisions in particular that you want to adopt for our use, or not.
Is there a reason for changing ours?
Not necessarily.
I
Oh,
was curious.
that's right. I don't- At the previous meeting.
Yeah.
There was a request that I get samples from other cities
Okay.
for these two things, their meetings and their agenda preparation, how it's.
Right, and I think there was a concern that there was there was opportunities for maybe some politicking with what happened in the past and whether we were sort of, we were covering that to make sure that these meetings happened and in an orderly way. So plantation, if you look at it, just doesn't say when the meetings take place. It just says once every month. It says places the city council may prescribe a resolution and they can have special meetings. So they basically just say once a month. What's the next one, Paul? Sunrise.
Miramar.
Yeah. Miramar. Meet at such time and place as may be prescribed by order resolution. It doesn't even talk about it. It doesn't require a certain number of meetings. And then Sunrise. Once a month. Hollywood. 20 regular meetings per year. Hallandale. Doesn't specify anything. Lauderhill. Second, and it's very specific.
One thing that I noticed that when I come to Pembroke Park. What was that later? The time. Putting the timing of 1:30 in the afternoon. As a regular meeting.
Pembroke Park says 7. It says 7 o'clock. Pembroke Park.
Yeah, the others, I mean, ours it says 1:30 in the afternoon as a regular meeting. And our meetings at 1:30 in the afternoon, a conference workshop type of meetings, not voting meetings. So the question of regular meetings, if it's determined at 1:30, where you get different. Do we leave in the time versus just stating the first and third Tuesdays of each month? Bridget, do you have a preference? Because I don't see in a lot of the cities that they list an actual time that the meeting, a regular meeting
No.
is concerned.
No, and the only thing that what governs this is that there's certain ordinances, land use ordinance need to be heard after 6 o'clock. But a lot of city commissions meet. City of Miami starts at 9:30 in the morning and they meet all day. But they put the items that have to be heard after 6 o'clock, they put those, after 6 o'clock, or they have a special meeting to deal with those things. But there's no, other than that, I don't really feel strongly about the time. Some cities make their meetings at night because they want people to be able to participate, but I think the city of Fort Lauderdale is too big to just have night meetings.
And the other, again, the differential is Fort Lauderdale, the afternoon meeting as a conference workshop, not as an actual action meeting.
Well, what this is doing is, all that about the conference meetings and all that stuff, that's just because the city commission has decided to do it. And they can do whatever they want. What this does is just said that there are going to be regular meetings on the first and third Tuesday of each month at 1:30. The fact that they decide to have other meetings where they don't vote or do vote or whatever, that's up to them. What we're requiring, because of, I think, some of the things that happen, is that they have 2 meetings a month starting at 1:30.
Half the 1:30 listed.
Pardon?
I don't know, I defer to Richards. Do you think there's any necessity to have a time rather than just a date?
I don't think that there's a necessity to have the time. Honestly, I've never in my life heard of city commissions monkeying around with meetings. I really haven't. It's just never been an issue ever. They just have their regular meetings. Now, sometimes people, like people are trying to cause some issues, they might not have a quorum show up or something like that. But the meetings are always held on the regular schedule or according to the regular schedule. I don't feel see any need to say that they're 1:30.
Well, yeah, by the way, you may recall that this language mirrors an existing ordinance. So I thought you were okay with this, and that's why I'm presenting it this way, but this is actually the ordinance language. It's
Yeah,
not
I think
based on
Chris is
that.
I think Chris is just asking a little broader question as to whether we need the time here or not. They can implement it at 1:30 by ordinance and leave the ordinance where it is. It just says they're gonna have this just in regular meetings twice a month.
The fundamental question though is, do you want it in charter?
I don't think we need to have the time for the charter. I think it's more important that we said that there are 2 meetings every month.
Yes, that's the point. I'd move to take out the time.
But to otherwise, if I may, but to otherwise leave mirroring what's in the ordinance? But don't forget, this is 2-26 of the ordinance.
I think that's more of a policy decision that a commission can decide. And as they fluctuate through the years, they can create their own policy as to how they want to conduct it. I think it's more important for the charter to point out that you need to have the 2 Tuesdays a month as far as charter. Then let the commission set the policy that they choose, because as we know, and you know, historically, at the county, it used to be Thursdays for workshops and do whatever. We actually use our afternoon meetings as workshops. They are non-voting agendas. So
I also think the second paragraph is just, I mean, if we just say they have to have a regular meeting at the first and third Tuesday, they can set them whatever time they want. They can have them before 6 o'clock, after 6 o'clock. And as I said, certain things need to be heard after 6 o'clock, but whoever's preparing the agenda will know that. But I think this whole section can be really, why do we need that second part of the second paragraph?
yeah, Jackie.
I just wondering why we even make a minute, since we're following the ordinance has been going on forever. We're not having any.
If you understand, ordinances are more policy than not.
I know the difference, but if not,
But we're going to
the
be
charter, enough, they have to go
charter.
change the ordinance.
No, they can set it
If
by.
they have one thing in the charter and then they lose the old ordinance, I don't think so.
I think that what they need to change, if this passes, they're gonna have to change the ordinances to be
Right.
consistent. There's no, any conflict is gonna have to be resolved by changes in the ordinance.
But they can set a policy that they choose by ordinance. They can set the policy as to how they want to set their schedule.
As long as they have their 2 meetings a month, they can do pretty much what they want.
I would suggest that we keep in the second paragraph because
Yeah.
yeah, or the resolutions and motions that they'll vote on, because I think the public, you know, the ease to attend, but then get the 1:30 when most people are otherwise at work. So I think the second paragraph is important. Allows the city by way of ordinance to set their meeting at 1:30 that they can discuss it if they choose, but the actual vote happens at 6 p.m.
Well,
later.
I think as you're talking about it, Chris, this paragraph sets up some of these meetings where nothing can happen. Because it says basically, public hearings, ordinances, resolutions, and motions have to be heard after 6 o'clock. So what do they do before 6 o'clock?
Do workshops. Do.
But that's not a regular meeting, that's a workshop.
Correct. And that's what our stuff is.
So there is no, is there no actual business conducted before 6 o'clock?
As the chairman says, if the CRA didn't. For,
Okay, Oh, yeah.
And otherwise, they, you know, they reach.
Yeah, I'm gonna I'm having trouble with the audio. I'm gonna try to disconnect.
It's basically what we see as far as workshop time that gets them done.
You know, I often say this, but one meeting ends at 1:30. Except that types of action have to be after 6. But it's not really, I mean, I guess by custom, there's a nomenclature that it's a conference meeting or a regular meeting, but it's really one meeting is 1:30.
There's something that needed to be voted on. It's not placed on the 6 o'clock. It's placed on the afternoon agenda because by the charter. It's treated as that regular meeting. That was, 30, that created the debate about what's the regular meeting.
It could, no, I can't speak for that item, but it could have been done that way. Maybe.
Anything that has to be voted on has to occur after 6 p.m. Then we give the city the latitude if they want to talk about non-voting matters. They can. But I think paragraph 2 is very important. Citizens' rights to assemble and to participate. And that's why I would suggest we keep the second paragraph close. That's why we want it in the chart.
Yeah. I was thinking that one, the first part. Covers. I actually had a point in the third paragraph I'd like to address. Just wanted to make sure, Richard, are you able to hear us again?
I am, I really do apologize, but it's life, but, I was wondering, just to go back, what did you decide on the meeting times?
I think actually just said, the consensus is we take out the time to start the meeting. Keep it. Any issue that the city commission has.
It's back.
As
Okay, so just to address that, I said. So if. So one has, shall by. First. I would just like maybe one word before rules. Parliamentary procedure or something to that effect, because the following is order of the meeting seems to contradict my point. But I just, again, I'm a stickler for the fact that I think you need parliamentary rules for the meeting that everyone knows. Something that gives kind of like call policy changes.
I think that's really important.
Yeah, well, I think we discussed that once before, because there was a city commission meeting where that issue came up. And the city attorney said, well, we have,
We have no Robert's rules.
right, we don't follow. any-"
Otherwise, but you're used to what?
Yes,
We have no Robert's rules.
And it's fine if they're not Robert rules, so long as they are rules of parliamentary procedure that anyone can.
Somebody needs, correct.
But it says current. Mission prescribed relations and order of business and shall minutes of. That's sense. So based on prior, I added identifying the parliamentarian, describing it. Yeah, identifying the parliamentarian, so and the rules of parliamentary procedure, that way. Just to. Taking the loss. Yeah.
Just so long as they have some written rules.
I have no desire to try and draft this for.
Oh, maybe we should move to.
You know, it's kind of interesting, because when you read the bottom of that thing, it says the commission may meet in conference session in a place other than the regular meeting, so that. The very first one was the regular meeting when we had at 1:30, because it refers to that actual 1:30 meeting as a conference meeting, not a regular meeting.
By the way, that is original language from the charter.
We need to go back to.
No, I think
I
that
think
just
we
gives
should
them
take the
the
time
the
out.
right to have a special meeting, another meeting, that they will, what was they do?
Taking it up in the first one.
Agreed.
This is quick information. Their workshop. Actually. I think that. It's all.
So dare I assume that not a regular employee?
We all know this.
No.
And, well, actually, you do, because you say right here, the agenda for meetings of the establishment. The public hearing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite. You know, I'm talking about Alexa.
Yeah, it's, right. And we're talking about the difference in that paragraph. So conference meetings. The agenda for the meetings of the city commission. The agenda for. Yeah.
Recording in progress.
And all right, you want to address agenda preparation? I gave you an example there.
that we have as far as time that it would be published and made public. And when we can make changes to that, agenda prior to, and we talked about the county's protocol. And
I thought that.
Twenty-two. The agenda for regular meeting will close at 3:30. Okay. And no less than 48 hours.
does that come here? Does that?
Some of this.
I say between the two and that would be, but, it's clear you have.
Yeah, these were. Code. One. Just was is treated a little more fundamentally. We're seeing most of them or periods.
Judy, is there something he can do about the audio that keeps going in?
Yeah, I think this is something.
You on Wi-Fi?
Pardon?
Are you on Wi-Fi?
I tried it on both Wi-Fi and cellular and it doesn't work. It's not coming. The video is great, but the audio is no good. Just goes in and out.
Turn off your video and the audio will come back.
It doesn't
How's the audio now? It's any better.
better.
All right, ready to move on to 3.09? That is on page 5. It's short and sweet. This is the result of Richard Weiss's and my phone conversation with Nathaniel Pittsburgh. It applies to all newly elected officials, including those elected in special elections. Thus consolidated 3.09.110 and eliminating 3.43.
And I would like to add, that it's supposed to be, this is big part of the state law because it's the special act that Broward County has, which means it was incorporated by state law. It set the timeline, for the certification and qualification. So this began first in compliance with the law of the special act that governs Broward elections for municipal elections in November.
Also, to compliment Paul, this is a lot cleaner than what I remember seeing. Wow.
This is just 2 cents.
Thank you, but I won't take all the credit, no. Thank you, but I don't think.
Well, do we need to vote to approve these, the wordings that we now have?
Well, I thought what we were going to do is go through it and then come back. Okay, with the changes.
That's just my
One-
question.
Yeah, one solid vote will be done.
So do you, yeah, on next page, it's the 3.10. Yeah.
Yes. I think let's move forward. I think it's important because we don't understand that the special act for elections is something and accepted through the state legislature, therefore it's state law. And we're compliance with state law about the outcome. And, taking it
Well, I'll just take all this jumping office with that general. But fine, but there's one other time period which is probably not a. In the special act, it's a canvassing board certified. Give us. Three point one zero gets deleted. Now. At one point, oh yeah, there it is. At one point, we discussed the permanent residence. To sorry, it's.
And Sheldon. As the city commission may reply, I legitimately just don't know what those were.
Yeah, I don't know where, that doesn't make any sense. to
There
me.
is, I believe there is a bond, I believe elsewhere in the ordinance that the city pays the agreement. Margaret, something more about this?
I'm not really sure, but that's a lot, but I don't. Who are they referring to here? Just the,
Is it the current language as we talk right now?
Yes. But you know what, let me listen to the ordinance, but maybe you'll find, I may find the section. On,
Because I doubt that
yeah.
the city manager goes to bond, you know, to be.
For fiduciary duty or for,
Paul, could you go back and find out? And go back to-
yeah, I may be able to put my hands on it right now.
And do we need to include any language as to when they have to establish the permanent residency? I think that's important.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I think the last meeting, the mayor asked for a definition of a permanent resident. And I'm pretty sure Mr. White said it's really not something you can define. So
Dean was a little confused when he asked the question, saying since he was born in Connecticut, how did that impact him by having permanent residence? It has no relationship at all to that question. Permanent resident means, and the courts will always define it, but the permanent residency by state court and state laws kind of defines it by driver's license, voter registration, auto registration, insurance, where your mail comes. Those are usually the standards that the court will look at
so
to define permanent
theoretically,
residency.
somebody's family could live somewhere other than Fort Lauderdale, but that person could be an employee of the city and establish all those things in a resident in the city. And that counts as a permanent resident. Am I correct?
Well, that'd be for the
The
court to
individual
decide.
has to reside.
Well, if they reside at that
They
residence,
have to, in order, you can't put an address, say, on your driver's license and voter registration if that's not your permanent residence.
but if you live there 6 days a week and go somewhere else on the
Well,
weekend,
that's fine.
okay, that's what I want to know. Okay.
That's never been the question. The
Okay.
question has been where you are and the address that you put on your driver's license and voter registration, auto registration, where your mail comes, where your bills come. That's what the courts will look for. But
Okay,
you have to be able to provide usually your utility bill or your lease where it's an approved.
what if you have two residences, like I just described, that you're paying for, but all your driver's license, voter registration, everything is at this residence in the city?
Well, that's again, state law that defines that.
Okay, well then that's okay.
I think there's a lot of confusion, you know.
Yeah, and I just want,
Not that much confusion on it.
And I'll address this. We had a couple meetings that we addressed this issue. In fact, we asked Paul to go back and find out what the best definition would be under state law, as well as going into case law as to how we would define that concept. And Paul came back to us citing not only statutes, but also case law, that permanent residence was the most defined to do that.
I was here for those. I just want
Yeah.
to, I can just see some circumstances, like if the brand new city attorney we hired was offered the position years ago, but he didn't take it because his family lived in another little town in Broward County. And he didn't want to like.
We've
move
never
them.
had an issue prior to this last year of anyone moving directly into the city promptly. This time it was 14 months before the residency has been declared.
Okay.
So that's why
Who
I'm
was that,
asking.
just out of curiosity?
Excuse me?
Who was that out of curiosity?
It's saying right now it's a present. So the documentation and all the reports, what we're saying now with permanent resident, do we need to add in the language of how, the timing of when they need to establish that?
Well, if you do
It's
that.
in
you
their,
have
their
to
employment
provide-
contract as well.
But if you do that, you have to provide a reasonable time for the person
Right.
to move into the city. I wouldn't know what that reasonable time would be. I think that's up either for us to decide or other people to decide, like professional relocation. You know, people, we want to be fair to the person. We don't want to
Right.
wreck a barrier. to
I
them.
know when George Hambury moved down, it was within 90 days. When Lee Feldman came down, it was within 90 days. When Chris came to town, he moved. So I mean, there's been some prior examples.
So what was it, 90 days? What, I mean, is there a rule? I just don't, I'm curious.
There can be a lot of circumstances with families.
But I think needs because your employment contract mirrors the language of the charter. So if you're not going to be have compliance with your employment contract. So you need to always come before and ask. And that's what, so if you leave it at that. The time frame.
I feel like adding a time period, to locate some of the same thing that we ran into, the same reason that we want to take 1:30 out of the times of the meetings.
You want to just leave it and just leave with permanent residence.
This would be part, I assume that some kind of language like that's gonna be built into the employment contract. Yeah, I don't much to it. I mean, short of putting something in here that the city has to create a household that the city manager will live in within the city. And so- I know that there was an issue, but frankly, I think the word permanent residence is.
And just further to go on what Mary said is it's really only the enforcement itself the issue. It really wouldn't be for the city commission to say, oh, you're not a permanent resident under some, you know, it would have to go to a court. We've been doing that. Putting us in a position. Conditions. Decide.
Does that take care of 4.05?
Do you want me to look into the bond? I don't know what's that bond.
That's, I just don't understand that.
Yeah, well,
Find out. Yeah,
or find out.
And
That's the
Anthony,
point.
we know.
Yeah, research that.
Anthony,
Okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry. This one.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
maybe some reason.
Is it-
I was just chatting with Dave about it.
Let me just ask you, but how many have been in there since they actually signed on checks?
Well, there's a section on that.
I'm sure.
The signature authority is done by resolution. I'm not certain if the manager is one of them, but there was a section in there that says that whoever signs checks
Right.
has to post a bond, yeah.
I think that's, I've seen that, yeah.
I'm not sure if the manager is on that list, though, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's where it comes from, it's that hearing. Especially when you look at difference in staff, yeah.
I'm sorry, I probably did the last one, I maybe, just.
What? Oh, James.
Maybe doing that.
Madam Chair. Happen to have somebody here from finance.
Oh,
Oh, hi, Devin Carter. Pretty much the person that signs checks is self-responded, so it's not typical that your city manager will become shut and fund check for the separation of duties that we have. And as stated, it is mentioned in the ordinance, the parties that are obligated to be bonded.
and he does sign the bond documents, so.
Along with the other parties too, but he does not sign the checks.
Yes.
So that was the purpose of it.
It looks like the last one that was done, thank you. It looks like the last one that was done was the director of finance, deputy director of finance, and controller, and the treasurer, signed signatories, prescribing that such employees be under fidelity bonded amount of $500,000. So that shows signs checks, it looks like as of May 2023. just looking at it, but. So I'm not sure about the city manager, I thought. Not.
That's what we want. I'm sorry. I don't-
It sounds like we don't need it, sure, so it could be taken care of.
That was something that's in the form of a motion.
It is.
All right, second.
Do you want me to find out first?
That's a good idea. I withdraw the motion.
Okay.
That's actually.
I was just saying, like, the last two words of it says may require, so maybe it's not there now.
Yeah. By order. And it's strange that it's the second count.
One more thing, so I must have made that just in case, a bond covenant may require. So it's not like a required, like a operational issue, but sometimes we do have special issues come up with bonds where it requires certain parties to.
Right, especially it's the manager and the mayor that go off and do the.
I'm sorry, just I'm stating just.
Devin Carter. Right.
Not sure.
Until Paul comes back and finds out what other reason why there needs to be a bond.
You know, the main thing that we discussed last time in 2017, we significantly was the whole issue about not being engaged in outside occupation and so words, workshop, et cetera, that we need to go to the commission. Notes we get so. Yeah. Covered. Then they go before the board, the commission. That's what. She has to say. Well, there's a. So I'm gonna say that no, it's gonna be serving.
Okay, so that concludes my presentation of old business.
Right. That's pretty cool. And that's. That's which direction we want to know.
Thank you. It's not.
By the way, switch to November elections. In the March.
And exactly, this is also obviously,
Right.
almost all of them probably is constructed or replaced with very simple sentence. So.
It's no different than organization getting after the election, November election.
So, by the way, this is mentions of trying to elect, that he didn't need to change because the timing was made that triennial election in 1988. So it's not like we had to change that.
We don't have triennial election.
Right, but I mean, you can change this whole section and make it beginning I mean, you can change it to quadrennial, out, but what I'm saying is this was.
Make it very simple. And just call for a reorganization meeting after the first meeting after the.
And I would like to specify just because this actually is
just dial.
not often an issue, but that the organizational meeting and selection of vice mayor needs to occur after the newly elected individuals are sworn. Because I have seen that, not here, saying that I've seen people try and make the votes before the people who are about to for the next term to get their oath and get on, which is not big.
Wait a second, I think we're talking. The.
Right. It's got the first city commission meetings because I was in April. Which is the first meeting after. Yes. Let's see, the second. The second meeting.
But I agree with. This needs to simplify. it.
Yeah.
We call it this quick. Understanding, we want to have the organizational meeting.
Right.
Harrison.
But remember, we got rid of the organizational.
Meeting them and seated.
Yeah. We don't have to put an organizational meeting with.
First,
Organization meeting.
okay, so that's done at the meeting.
First meeting.
I figured.
Yeah, it's at that meeting and first meeting in April, every year thereafter.
Let's try and all
Yeah. That didn't change. Oh, excellent. Happy to hear.
So what sort of system would be? Election. Staggered.
Right.
Elections are for the. City commission. Actually staggered between, you know, maybe.
That's not. We discussed this. Back in 2016, 17, and the theory that you were reading the old minutes was that after the election to set and change to November, that we would then come back to the drawing board to work into a staggered election cycle. That was the intent. Trying to take over.
Right, and we haven't discussed it yet.
It's like.
Hello.
That's in the future.
Yes, hi.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So.
There.
Just gonna get picked up speakers, but now maybe you'll be able to hear better. Richard, can you hear something?
Yes, I can.
Oh.
So I'll go by that, I'll make it at the first meeting after the election, and then every year thereafter.
Richard, did you put an update?
Which is on page 28. And Paul, you're going to include one sentence that the election of vice mayor must happen after a new democracy. I just want to make sure that again, somebody is new, they still got included in. So. Are. I'm assuming that the cooperative is on. Don't you want to about.
Oh, yeah. If they will, yes, if you do it the way we're recommending, you have to do it. So the November.
Well, if we're somebody. With the middle of the year or somebody. That doesn't trigger the next roll. I can say that at that. If we win this one. Vote for. Yeah, new days is faster.
Somebody who's.
So Chris,
That's a summer. It's something that's appointed, and they would take over as vice mayor. That's what we just did. Yes. Except they would shortchange because of the marching the charter. So this way, we're going for them.
I can probably, I can probably just cross-reference the time and. That's.
Yeah, to the organization. How expected. There any.
Just ask Richard because this is really Richard's. And the latest of the hour in Paris right now. Whether.
Oh, he's ahead.
Yeah. It's very.
109.
I really don't want to inconvenience anybody here. This is my own schedule. If it wasn't for the, totally fine. It's very nice. Just can't see anybody, so I'm just.
Okay. So 1 a.m. in the morning, you're ready to go ahead.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Ready. Sweet.
Okay. I'll pass to you, Richard, because I defined you as the authority in these matters. Do you have any comments?
Yes. Pages involved. legislative, right? We get the city commission, so. I think it's a good-
That's correct. Yeah.
It's pretty student.
Point out any about this.
But I don't think it's not. So.
Right, and the only place where I heard this debate was the David ago. And it was just admissions, in-house five, boss, one commissioner was in New York. Such an unusual, I don't think you'll see that type of vindictiveness.
Yeah, so what do you think about this? Sure, this. It's definitely. Familiar with the governor's powers here.
Yeah.
Yes.
I looked at that. I think it's amazing.
We did.
Um,
Last spring, we had discussion. And we- If you stop passing changes. Yes, even if they were under, I'm going back to Rick Scott, I don't think it's Jeb Bush. People threatened to remove people from office, even if they had not been charged with the crime, just by being placed under investigation and to the sunshine violation in Cooper City at that time. And they were threatening to remove the commission from office. And at that time, and Richard, you should, David was actually the city attorney at the time.
But if we're looking for the government, anybody at this time, I don't think the charter has to address, someone outside of the city. This
So the question is, if somebody's convicted of authority, a jury. Do you think, they automatically off the commission? How it's gonna be? That's what this says.
Fine with the word, right? I don't know. Richard,
Well, I mean, I think, you have a judicial system, if somebody gets convicted of a felony. Lots of felonies are.
Right.
But see them. I don't know. Even right here. They're just. The names of the convicted. But they're serving. Even though they might be criminal. Sure.
about reciprocal, Post our motion before you.
That Tallahassee is going to act.
I
With
agree
totally,
with that. Yes,
yeah,
it will.
ignore it. Tell it fine.
Maybe for the conviction, we know that. But again, we're talking about charter. We have different companies and different people which. I guess that's quite the. Charter, the question might be. What type of a felon? How forward? It's like a slug, yeah, into the week. Like someone's. Quality of. That's why.
We've got,
Well, I agree that I think we is pulling, try to.
To be able to brief us on how this works to the state. Like, they should forfeit their position.
Because. That's. Right. Hard to. But the other thing I wanted to mention, on this, regardless of appeal, there may be a new problem. I mean, I'm sure, but there will be.
The process issue, because I was drawing the right line. If you are convicted, get off. If we. Yeah.
misdemeanors over, we've reduced it down to just felonies, so we've taken DUIs out the way, whatever. If you want to say something.
Say
So-
felony or misdemeanor or interpreted, that's what a lot of say.
Right.
So, Fran, all this conversation about definition of, someone was be convicted and then should they get here, would they be entitled to compensation? Will do.
They've had that for
Every case is in the same city, so, but I think what you're talking about is for the state. Right, so if you're the state, you get compensated for the back pay? You would.
Yes.
What about, you've got those other circumstances for that? Such as this term that's expired. One of them. So that's, then we're getting into the problem of finding all of the, or all of the different options and.
So many parts of this, it's complicated. But sort this out. Yourself being charged. Think about how many months before it goes. Now this is gonna play out.
we're talking about.
So I think that personally, I'm thinking they should out.
Under state law. Charge. Has the ordinary right to conviction. But I don't.
May not be fair to me, not to read. Right. The line that gets reinstated, you know, so.
Only the voting rights. The person goes to the old, they never lose their. That was a reveal. We already.
The greatest majority of people ever get elected in city board of our health. Somebody, some crazy prosecutor decides to prosecute. The jury believes me. It's crazy, but just what it is. And is it right that
Okay, so. And governor has the power to suspend office. And then officials convicted. Municipal office, official from office. If the official is acquitted or found not guilty or otherwise cleared, of those charges, was, the government would revoke the suspension to throw such municipal official. What's missing, what I would call it being missing in the statute is if someone is suspended. And at the first, I didn't mention this one, but the first subsection, the governor may suspend someone for malfeasance, misfeasance, official drunkenness, incompetence, or permanent inability to perform official duties. What I don't think is in the statute is reinstatement when someone is suspended for. But there is reinstatement.
Could you read the first part of it again? Does the power, the governor have the power to suspend if it relates to their duties or just any time?
I read it as a felony, you have power, but a misdemeanor would have to be a misdemeanor for something within the office.
So whenever any elected municipal official is arrested for a felony, or misdemeanor related to his office, or indicted or informed against for the commission of federal felony or misdemeanor or state felony or misdemeanor, the governor has the power to suspend such municipal official from office.
I'm fine leaving them, I'm fine leaving state power, that's more strict than is in this charter. You suspend them as soon as they're arrested.
But reinstatement.
Feel about just leaving state law.
But the state process.
The governor, if the governor doesn't feel it's, I mean, I notwithstanding the politics or individual people. I mean, I think the governor's pretty good in the past. Fully sure suspend.
Suspend is different. Suspension implies injury.
Well,
You think it's suspended. That doesn't sound.
Previous discussion, and I'm not sure why I actually have a clue what I have. The third sentence. Maybe suspended.
You need to say that.
I don't have a lot of notes on it, so I'm trying to generalize. We did discuss that section. I can probably like to have a. I go back to my actual.
I don't think we can use it today because who's going to be the person that's the next?
Okay, but that's asking for a big problem. The state is not.
Well, side of the charter. We're talking about charter.
Just over the area until you need to be.
I don't think we need to put more. Because you're right, the state is much more strict. The commission communicate is what I said, yes, yeah, it's not up to the commission to decide, so you need a bright line. They
Starting to be silent. Richard said.
reap something.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't think there was a total or particular consensus on this one.
It's very not the way that it would read. You should take it. Can be accused, but you don't need to unless. It's fair. But again, I'm just talking about, this is as far as the charter.
You'll read it. So when the commission made the recommendation to remove the commission. It's showing that it's size.
Then you're putting the position in the politics, so, you know.
Yeah, making a recommendation.
Yeah.
Honestly, and to just go very high level, let's know capable of addressing issues. One, there were many commissioners. That being harder versus when someone needs to be replaced. With respect to special elections. When that is kind of know from other cities how this happens. There may be some better practices that we want to try.
There is something in a different part of.
Okay,
And Nathaniel was suggesting, I think it's 7.1. I'm not certain. I think it's in Article 7. He was suggesting something about changing that section, because the 18-month rule doesn't really work with, since they changed from March to November. So,
It's,
7. around 7.
7-Eleven, special elections.
there's a section on appointment to fill the,
Unless it's covered elsewhere in the charter, if a commissioner is suspended. Oh, sorry.
that's always been the special, so it says the appointments have special elections. And so, yeah.
It's actually going back.
That's how that's dictated.
What's your thought about?
Depends
Just leaving state law?
No, I understand. Same. I think there is some nuance to the appointment of the commission.
Right. It's ridiculous. Either just say that they say refer to state law or just have it totally silent.
Said they try to invest that language in.
it's Howard Carter is written in 18 months, which is conflicting with the fact that we had only 3 years.
This is right. It's less than a year, I think. We'll get to it, but it's already.
Well, also for unexcused absences. I'm going to assume in good faith that the system is. Eventually, that the motion on this, they want a word in there of participation. Is something state law. Was in the order.
Unless we change.
But getting back to the state law, though, state law is written in the progressive, not the mandatory.
Yes, so are you okay with that, or you don't think it's strong?
I'm okay with that.
I was asking Chris.
I'm sorry.
I'm really ambivalent either way, to tell you the truth. I just think, that the charter shouldn't have progressive, it should be one way or the other.
Jackie, what do you think?
I think it's good the way it is. There's
No, anything. Forever.
yeah, I think you're saying that's.
the state law so that we don't have to change everything in the state. We don't have to change the charter because the state law changed. So if we can stay with the state law and keep it that way, we don't have to be concerned with constantly changing the charter.
But who's the may though? If we say something may be suspended if they're.
Even with the fact that it's just- this baby's- it hurts. You know, I would say nothing. I don't.
No, I understand, but in a charter, we're only talking about city for water. What happens if the governor doesn't suspend someone? We have the city now confronted with somebody that they it's not qualified law. Does that? Yeah, but
Unless you give them power to get rid of somebody, it doesn't end up any place.
that's exactly what I'm saying. Who pulls the trigger in the city? Well, we just can't do it.
It's my version that we're gonna be on that stuff. Something like that in here. So I wouldn't put me and I would put nothing. Just say, I like what we talked about. So they can, you know, whatever word we use. They can get the end of it.
Yeah, but you see, but that brings politics into that. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I just. This of May, and I think that's a very sensitive. Out the.
Yeah. Anything after?
The word. Six.
Yeah, I just, I'll tell you in a second, you just wrote this down.
Whole side.
Just 606.
Okay, 606, I didn't have that.
City commission involvement prohibited.
Yeah, that's under the civil service article.
Try to get rid of it too. Because now you're putting the city commission again in decision making. Position over its members.
606.
Yeah.
606, city. This is kind of the same thing as,
It's like the same thing as the section we just discussed.
right, in the context of civil service.
I don't know, I kind of think you're right. 606. Oh, it's an H, no, I'm talking about.
606.
Section 606 is not what they refer to.
It's what's the motion about the first thing.
Right.
Okay, then.
Why do we remove that? If nothing else, it's a good policy, right?
The city commissioners was- it's a big violation.
So-
And these are leaves open. Saving the judgment.
So does that do? Do it to
Make that determination.
Yeah, it needs to be outside investigations and reports versus putting it in.
This is similar to 107.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. It doesn't. It doesn't make a damage. Does it? Right.
Was- I see what you're saying, by moving it, leaves. And it's a forfeiture. Well, 606 is more of a policy statement. Even the commissioner made its committees direct the appointment of any.
Or is it just a drill?
It says will be grounds for removal. Right. Now, this, then again, it's a very nice statement of policy. And it does give the city manager more powers. Here, not to interfere with the city manager. Because I quickly review it. Thank you. Thank you. For narrating, and, looking at the time as well. We were
We got
aspiration.
through a good portion,
Yeah.
more than we usually do, so.
So when we convene, you want to start with this?
Yeah, let's go back to the articles that are gonna, the same thing same pattern we did for this one, Paul.
Okay.
Take the organized clean, we can vote on those things nice and clean, let's go back to this.
One other one other issue that I just want to add in.
What, Judy?
One other issue to add in, and actually falls under the Charter Revision Board discussion. What I would like to know is the, Harrison, if you could check with Drew Myers, what is the county's standards as far as decorum? Anything here when we talk about elected officials or staff or anyone else. Is there a code of decorum in the charter? Is there such a policy?
I'm not aware of one, so I have to ask her. I haven't thought about that. All right. I certainly haven't been presented with one. I haven't seen it.
Yes, some of the cities have.
Parliamentary procedure. Some But yeah, I'll ask him before we go. Is that right?
That would be helpful. Second.
But no,
Eric.